Good evening, everyone. I hope that you're able to join us here for ProZion's first ever live web chat. It's a really exciting event, and I just want to start by thanking those who have been involved in setting this up. I won't go through all the names, but they know who they are. It's a really exciting event. We've got with us today Anat Hoffman, who I'll introduce in a second, talking to us about recent events at the Kotel with Women of the Wall. Just very quickly, Pro-Zion, for those who aren't necessarily aware of us, we're the UK Zionist Movement for Progressive Judaism. We work primarily to support the progressive Jewish movement in Israel, and we also work to raise awareness in the UK of pertinent issues in Israel. I just want to bring out one of our top values, which really speaks to the topic of tonight, which is we believe that the state of Israel should be a democratic, tolerant and pluralist state with equal rights and opportunities for all its citizens. And I think the reason why I wanted to mention that is I think that the topic of tonight is whether those kinds of values are under threat from recent events. Because we're so technologically minded, if you would like to tweet about tonight's event, then we would definitely welcome you to do so. We'd ask you to use hashtag AskAnat to tell us how it's going. Also, if you want to comment or you want to learn more about ProZion, then you can visit our website at www.prozion.org.uk, where for free and no obligation you can sign up to our weekly email newsletters. So I'll just very quickly introduce our speaker, who for many doesn't need any introduction, but she's very kindly taken time out this evening to talk to us. Anat Hoffman, Executive Director of the Israel Religious Action Center and Chairperson of Women of the Wall. Anat, I'm going to hand over to you to tell us of your recent experiences.
So shalom, good evening. The reason I agreed immediately to be part of this historic webcast is because I am a big fan of Pro-Zion, and I'm always amazed how these young people are actually marching UK Jewry, progressive Jewry, to really tackle some of the hardest issues in Israel. If love is what remains after you know the truth, which I think is true, Pro-Zion loves Israel, because these people know the truth and still care very much about Israel. I want to talk to you about the events of this week, and I'm very eager to hear questions. Please ask me questions. On Tuesday, the 16th of October, we were going to celebrate the eve of Rosh Chodesh Cheshvan with a group of Hadassah women who came to the centennial celebration of Hadassah in Jerusalem. Over 2,000 people came to this centennial celebration, and we had plans for the last 6 months for a very large attendance at the wall. Due to all sorts of scheduling problems and technical problems, in the end, it was that 7 busloads, about 210 women, showed up at the wall at around 10:30 at night, quarter to 11 at night, to celebrate a very short prayer with us in solidarity with Women of the Wall. The short prayer included a Shehecheyanu, a Shema, and 2 songs, Oseh Shalom Bimromav and Alach Yerushalayim, really very short. We invited 10 cantorial students, women, to be there to sing with us in order to lead the 250 women attending in song. Only I wore a talis. The reason I wore a talis was to show what the talis of the Women of the Wall looks like. Many of you own it, many of you have seen it, but it's the talit, it's the prayer shawl of the 4 mothers. It has Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, and Leah on all 4 corners, and I wanted to show the talis. From the second we arrived at the wall, it was very clear that the police, together with the Western Wall Heritage Fund, which is the body that governs the wall, made mostly of ultra-Orthodox men. The police and the people of this fund were ready for trouble. Trouble didn't have to start. They wanted to make sure there is no trouble. And in order to make sure there's no trouble, they decided to silence the women. They were milling around with us, and they said, don't hand out papers. You make sure you don't hand out papers. What is this paper? You shouldn't hand it out. All sorts of demands before even we started. But once we started, we sang a little nigun. I explained to the attending women what the Women of the Wall are about. We are a group of Israeli women fighting for the equality at the Western Wall. We wish to wear a talis. We wish to pray out loud. We wish to read the Torah. And we realize we're a minority, and that's why we want just a little bit of time, maybe 1 hour a month, but a little bit of time for us to be able to practice our practice at the wall. We are multi-denominational. Some of us are Reform, some of us are conservative, many of us are Orthodox, and we've been around for 24 years. I think we're the only group in the world that prays together from all denominations. When we were at the Pasuk, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום, that is really the beginning of the Shema. I was approached by an officer called Daniel Saraga, and he told me to lower my voice. I did lower my voice. Did the prayer become silent? No. The 10 cantorial students have a voice, and the 250 women know how to say Shema. So the Shema continued at full force. Then a policewoman, Ahuva Eskelasi, approached me and told me not to wear my talis the way people do, but to wrap it around my neck as if it is a shawl. I did that. I did exactly what she asked, and you can see it on the many videos that were taken. Even though I complied with the police, Inspector Saraga grabbed my arm, pulled it behind my back, and took me to the police station. When we turned the corner, and it was quite dark in the stairs there, he actually pulled it even more, even though I showed no resistance, and basically hurt me. And when I said, this is hurting me, it looked like that's the purpose of the whole thing, lady. And when I asked him when we arrived at the police station, why am I being detained? He said, because you resisted coming with me. I felt that I need to give him an example of what lack of cooperation means, because I was very cooperative, and I thought the next thing he asks me, I will not comply with. And he did ask me to move from one chair to another, and I said I refuse. He put handcuffs on my hands. He grabbed the handcuffs, and he dragged me on the floor about 12 meters from one chair to the other. As a result, the handcuffs cut into my hand. I don't know if you can see it, but can you see it? Anyway, this is now 5 days later, but there are cuts that the handcuffs did in my hands. He made me wait 3.5 hours. During these 3.5 hours, I was not offered anything to drink. I was not offered to go to the bathroom. My hands were in handcuffs, and I was just waiting for him to come back from his activities. When he came back, he sat for an hour and wrote the complaint. Then he added more things, not only resisting arrest, but also injuring the religious feelings of others, and not obeying a legal order by a policeman. Then he walked me throughout the plaza of the wall. That's about a 200-meter walk with my handcuffs and a policeman behind to go to a particular car and take me to another police station. In the police station, there was an investigator. His name was Shami Shiraz. He asked me, what did I do today at the wall? What is my connection to the Women of the Wall? Have I been advised in the past to be respectful of the feelings of others? Am I aware that what I was doing is criminal? Why didn't I comply when I was asked to shut up? I'm reminding you, I was never asked to shut up. I was asked to lower my voice. Why didn't I comply when I was asked to take off my talit? I was not asked to take off my talit. I was asked to wear it in a special way. By the way, there's no reason in the world why the Jerusalem police has become a fashion police, but put that aside. And when I finished answering all these questions, I was asked if I would be willing to sign right now and get, on my own reconnaissance, be banned from the wall for a few weeks. And if I do show up at the wall, pay a 5,000 shekel fine. I told him I'm not willing to do that. Why? I've done it a few times before. An investigation was opened, and yet I was never charged. I want to explain this point. If I am breaking the law in Israel, then they should charge me. And when they charge me, I will go to court and we will have it out. Is it a felony what we're doing or not? But what's happening now is that women of the wall, myself included, but a few others, are being detained and arrested and detained. Reports are written, witnesses are questioned, videos are taken, and in the end, the files are closed. Now, they're not closed because there's not enough evidence. They're not closed because there's no public interest. These are the two reasons that most files in Israel get closed. Either not enough evidence or no public interest. They are closed for lack of guilt. I need to stress that when you have an investigation that ends up with lack of guilt, then that means that maybe another investigation on the same issue should not be opened. Am I making this point clear? Because at that point I said I want to see a judge. I wanted to see a judge and say the whole purpose of this detention is to bar me from going to the wall and do my work as a leader of Women of the Wall. The whole point is harassment and intimidation, is to break the leadership of the Women of the Wall. We are a small group. It's possible to intimidate us. So if every one of us gets banned from the wall for the majority of the days of the year, then the state is using its power to limit our abilities. They said, well, if you want to see a judge, you're going to have to be arrested. And they took me to the jailhouse. In the jailhouse, I went through a strip search, that is to be completely naked, with a policewoman with a latex glove. All my possessions were taken away from me. I was placed in a cell with a prostitute, a car thief, and a woman who's child abused. There was no bed for me, even though they said there would be a bed. There was no blanket, even though it was cold. I wasn't allowed to call my lawyer, even though I started asking for it beginning with 5:45 in the morning. And eventually, when they took me to the jailhouse, they put handcuffs on my legs as well. I think this is called leg cuffs, whatever. It's very hard to walk with these things. I was put in a holding cell right next to a men's holding cell. So the women's holding cell is very tiny. Myself and the prostitutes were together in the little cell. Next to us was a cell with like 6 men, and the men were constantly offering the Russian prostitute the worst possible suggestions. It went over 90 minutes. I can tell you that this is one of the hardest things I've had to experience, that men are saying to me, bring her over to our cell. We know how to relax her. And I told them, she's crying, let her be. And they say, oh, she's crying. We know how to comfort her. Just 5 minutes with us. The exposure of 90 minutes to the filth coming out of that cell and her crying her heart out. She's Siberian. She's from a Tatari background. She's been in Israel 5 months. And there was almost nothing I could do to help. Now, there were constant guards outside. Apparently, it's always like it, that men from the men's cell are abusing the women in the women's cell, and it's normal. I wish I could tell you that what I went through is a cruel and unusual punishment. But apparently it's cruel, but very, very usual. When I got to court, again, I was asked to sign that I won't come to the wall for 30 days unless, and if I do, I have to pay a 5,000 shekel fine. The judge was unwilling to understand or to accept that is, in the end, these investigations end up with no guilt. Either charge me or stop detaining us. You understand this point? This is so important for me to explain. Anyway, I went home. I'm suffering from some post-trauma. One of the symptoms is that I can't stop talking about it to my family, to my friends. I want to tell them again and again what it was like, because it's hard to digest. When I told the Siberian prostitute, she asked, "What are you in for?" And I told her I wore this prayer shawl and I was saying Shema Yisrael. She cracked up laughing. It was the only time she laughed in the whole time I met her. And she said, even in Siberia, they don't do things like that. That's it. Any questions, guys?
Hi, Anat.
Hi, Deborah.
Firstly, can I just say, I know it's not an easy story to share, and I think we're really grateful that you've taken the time to share it with us. I've been collecting questions from our community on the internet, and the first question is from Didi Gilbert in the USA. And Didi asks, how is the Israeli Republic responding? We know there's not been much coverage in the Israeli press. Is this a diaspora issue?
Well, Didi, you hit it on the nose. I can't tell you how disappointed I am that even though we did get to some of the major journalists and media and opinion setters in Israel with this story, they shrugged their shoulders. They said, what is with this group of women? Don't they know that the wall belongs to the rabbis? What? Wake up and smell the hummus. This is how it is. And just yesterday, I got the first call from an Israeli journalist, a prominent writer in Ynet. And Kobe says to me on the phone, hey, Anat, were you strip searched? I say, yes. He says, oh, that's interesting. I say, Kobe, let me get it right. Here is a group that challenges Israel politically, religiously, and ideologically. And the one time you're interested is that tits are involved. And he said, yeah, that's true. It's going to go past my editors because now it's more interesting. I think that this is a classic case where not mitzion tetzeh Torah, from Zion, Torah will go forth, but the opposite. Zion needs to import some Torah. I think this is an outrageous thing, and we need to, and I love the fact that the Jewish world is outraged, because I think you, Deborah, and Didi, that asked the question, you can envision a wall where there is pluralism. It's possible for you to imagine it. For Israelis, it's learned helplessness. They can't even imagine it's possible that the wall will not be run by an ultra-Orthodox minority faction of the Jewish people. They can't imagine that really it could be a national monument open to all. It's not, but you can. And I think this is a great gift you're giving to Israel, that you can imagine that. And we are a country that without the imagination of people, we would not have even existed. There was a journalist, actually, in Basel who envisioned us before we even existed. And I think this is the time where I have to turn to diaspora Jews and say, salvation is not going to happen in Israel. It has to be imported. Will Israelis rejoice at a revolution at the wall? Absolutely. They just can't imagine it's possible.
Thanks, Anat. The next question comes from Daniel Volkan, and he's wondering if any men have been arrested in the men's section for wearing inappropriate clothing, like a women's talit.
In the last 24 years, women of the wall have been attacked by numerous men. There's never been a charge against any of our attackers. In fact, many times we are told by the police that we were attacked by anonymous attackers, and the police was never able to find out who they are. and also the regulation that we are supposedly breaking, the 13th regulation of the law of holy places, which is a law that was devised by King George V. It's in the end your fault, UK Jews, that King George V, during the Mandate period, had the law of holy places. And the regulation that we are breaking supposedly is, one cannot perform a religious act that offends the feelings of others. Anyone performing such an act is guilty of 1 year imprisonment. Men cannot perform a religious act that offends the feelings of others. We have been watching the wall for many years, and we can't think of one religious act, Jewish religious act, that men do that could possibly end up breaking the regulation. Only women holding a lulav, blowing shofar, putting on tefillin, wearing a talit, praying out loud, reading Torah, having a bat mitzvah, all these religious acts are all criminalized in Israel. That's why we're all sitting now and talking on this webcast. It's outrageous. Why did we take the keys to the holiest site of the Jewish people and give it to one minority faction? Why are we allowing that minority to use the state power, the police, the Knesset, the legal system, the whole power of the state, and abuse their jurisdiction? We need to widen the table. You should also help run the wall. Jews of the diaspora should be sitting around the table. Women should be around the table. Archaeologists have something to say about the wall. We should have a body different from the wall, the Western Wall Heritage Fund. And I'm happy to tell you that IRAC, the Israel Religious Action Center, is about to petition to the Supreme Court. Why not dismantle the whole body and make it again with everyone who has an interest at the wall sitting around the table?
Next question, as I guess a follow-up to what you just said, was Rabbi Mark Goldsmith asks, could Jews worldwide and in Israel who believe that everyone has an equal right to pray campaign for there to be an egalitarian section at the Kotel that isn't just Robinson's Arch?
Look, here it's a question whether we should divide space or divide time. I think that it's very elegant to divide time. I see what happens at the tomb of the patriarchs, where Jews are able to share the holy site with Muslims. And there are hours where the tomb is for the Muslims, and there are hours where it is for the Jews. And other than some very unhappy incidences, but on the whole, at least in the past 10 years, it's been working. And I think that's what should happen at the Western Wall. I think there should be a partition at the wall for some hours of the day, but not all of them. And when we come and there is a partition, we will all abide by ultra-Orthodox rules, because that time the wall is ultra-Orthodox. But when the partition is moved, and let's say at 12 o'clock every day, the partition goes, then it's a national monument, open to all Jews to do what they feel fit. And it's no longer an ultra-Orthodox synagogue. It is then complying with the habits of many other Jews, not just the ultra-Orthodox. I think that makes more sense to me than putting on another fence and in a symbolic way showing that Jews are not able to share. The wall should be a place where we exemplify the possibility of sharing.
Question from Anna Dyson in Leeds. I am deeply concerned about the seemingly rapid loss of democratic values. Are you able to reassure me that the leaders of our Jewish state are fit for purpose?
Yeah, I share this concern. I share that there is an attrition of our democratic values, but I think that we are engaged, all of us right now at this webcast, at one of the most dynamic and historic dialogues of our lifetime. We are arguing what are the values of the Jewish state. I know Israel is Jewish and democratic, but what does Jewish mean? What are the values of the Jewish people? I can't think of a more interesting argument to devote my adult life for. And we should all wonder, are the values of the Jewish state ethnocentrism, racism, or pluralism and equality? And if we believe in pluralism and equality, we need to do something about it. Because the way things are going right now is that the other side is supporting their people, and our people have to start supporting theirs.
To follow up on that, Anat, Rebecca Steinfeld asks, have you thought about standing in the Knesset and fighting the battle from within the political sphere as opposed to merely as an activist, at the wall?
I tried to run for Knesset years ago. I made it to number 18 and 12 got in. I was quite far from the getting in. I think I'm in a good place with a good staff, doing what I should do at a NGO level, at a non-government organization. But my colleague, Gilad Kariv, Rabbi Gilad Kariv, a dynamic, fantastic leader, has just announced that he is running for Knesset. I think he will be the cat's meow. He will be exactly the voice we want in Knesset. I have given him the biggest check an Israeli can give a candidate, which is about a quarter of my salary, and I encourage you all. He's running. It's going to be a short 6-week primary election. If you can support this rabbi, the first reform rabbi who really stands a chance to be a member of Knesset for the labor movement, this would be an excellent move. I think at last we have someone that can actually make it.
I have another question for you, just trying to sort through them. Here we go. I was wondering, well, Michal Maris Kamil was wondering, what is the involvement of Iraq and Women of the Wall in organisations that are pushing to change the electoral system so it's more representative and people's votes aren't made redundant by coalition politics, and what your stance is on that?
Both organizations are not involved at all at the election reform. The reason is that we're both practical organizations and believe that the existing Knesset is not going to change the rules in order to make sure that they don't get reelected. What we are doing is encouraging every member we have to enroll in parties so they can choose any party, so they can help choose the lists of members of Knesset, and of course to go and vote, to encourage Israelis to go and vote.
I have a question from Joy Millis. Should we give the Israeli government an ultimatum? No recognition, no support from progressive Jews.
That's a hard one. That's a very hard one, because I don't believe in boycotts. There's something very one-sided and even childish. The world is very complex. I think intelligence is defined by the ability to tolerate ambiguity. I think it's too one-sided. I can see your anger. God knows I'm angry. I'm awfully angry. But I think we have to be smart about it. I think progressive Jews have to support progressive Jews in Israel and progressive causes in Israel and insist on supporting their own. God knows the ultra-Orthodox are supporting their own and only their own. And I go to some ultra-Orthodox institutions. Eish HaTorah, for example, comes to mind. Chabad comes to mind. And the people there, some of them good people, are telling me, do you know that most of our budget comes from your people? I say, this year, instead of supporting Eish HaTorah and Chabad, some of them are doing wonderful work, one should support a progressive movement in Israel, the Masorti movement, the Reform movement, the Women of the Wall, anyone who challenges the Orthodox monopoly. That is what we have to take upon ourselves. Support our own.
When you say support our own, it sounds like it's an issue that should apply just to progressive Jews. Is this an issue that is just for those who have a progressive mindset, or is this a broader issue?
It's a broad issue. If you are a liberal Orthodox, support Kolech, the Orthodox Women's Forum. If you are a conservative Jew, support Masoti movement in Israel. If you are Reform, support IMPJ, the Israel Movement for Progressive Judaism, and its arm IRAC, the Israel Religious Action Center. But that's what I mean when I say support your own. But when we support, this is better than to say boycott. Boycott is starting the language of divorce, and I'd rather fix the marriage than give a get.
Anat, perhaps you could tell us a little bit more about previous legal battles over the Kotel, and maybe some of the more of the political background that's got us to where we are today.
The legal battles over the Kotel, unfortunately, have not ended well. I can't think of any verdict that actually increased pluralism. And the reason is that I'm afraid that the legal system, too, is so far from the wall, don't know what the reality is at the wall, and is always afraid of the disturbance of the peace. As a result, the bullies at the wall, that is, the people who are violent at the wall, have won. Bulliness pays up. To be a bully works, because what happened is, for example, on Tuesday, because of the fear that there will be an ultra-Orthodox outrage, it was easier for the police to stop the women of the wall than to make sure that if there's one bully that starts heckling or spitting or shouting, to take the bully and to tell him, right now, there is an 11 to 12 minute prayer here. You have to go away if you can't tell. The whole thing we were going to do was at the most 15 minutes. So I think a democracy is measured by how it deals with its minorities, not by how it bows down to its majority. And at the wall, at that time, there is an ultra-Orthodox majority. That's true, but that evening. But we were 250 women who wished to have 15 minutes of a different kind of prayer. A smart policeman would have been able to contain whoever is violent and not to take away the leader of the women of the wall to a 24-hour terrible ordeal. I think the police were not smart. But the police were not acting smart because they are advised by that foundation that I told you about, the Western Wall Heritage Fund. And as I told you, we're going to fix that. We're going to try to change that fund. We all have to fight to have a say and sit around that table.
Anat, I want to ask you about your critics. The religious argue that Women of the Wall is provocative, whilst the left argue that we shouldn't care about the Kotel, that it's an Orthodox synagogue, a remnant of a Judaism that we have no desire to have a connection with. How do you reconcile both of those critiques?
Look, this thing about being provocative, all I can tell you is one thing. I've been in an NGO for a long, long time. I've invented provocative acts left and right. If I wanted to do a provocative act at the wall, the last one I would choose would be to come with modestly dressed women, many of them Orthodox, and do a halachic prayer at 7 in the morning once a month. I can think of something a little more wild than that. I don't think Women of the Wall is a provocation. I think after 24 years, it's possible to believe that we are a community of ideologically driven, spiritual women who've developed a unique community that prays at the Western Wall. Well-behaved women have never changed anything in the world. And we are told that we are not well-behaved. It's okay. It's fine. I am not well-behaved. I am trying to change something that I think thousands, maybe millions of Jews are supporting. And I feel that support. Certainly felt it in the last day or two. As to the leftists who say, who cares about the wall anyway, I think if you give up on the wall, you've given up on something very central. One day you'll wake up and you see that you've given up on Judaism altogether. Your children will not be exposed to Judaism altogether because you won't find who's going to teach your children Judaism because you'll reject the whole thing. I insist on finding my place at the wall. I'm reclaiming this holy site. I'm not asking for 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I'm asking for 1 hour a month. That is bending over backwards. This is asking for just a little bit. But if I can't read Torah even 1 hour a month without a fear of going to jail, no one should be reading Torah. It means Chilul Hashem, the desecration of the name of God. I'm willing to come there at 6 in the morning, 5 in the morning. Make it hard on me. Bring me at the 1 hour that has the least amount of people. But don't tell me that I never can go there. By the way, when we offered this to the Minister of Religion, he said, even 1 minute is too much because the wall is offended by these women. And I, as minister, I know what the wall wants to see. I know what the wall wants to hear. And it doesn't want to see these women. It doesn't want to hear these women. I'm not willing to buy this. It says, Ki beiti beit tfilah yikare lechol ha'amim. My house will be a house of prayer for all people. I belong to the Jewish people. For crying out loud, I'm 50% of the Jewish people. I want 1 hour a month.
Anat, all of our Facebook and Twitter channels are inundated with the question, what can we do? You've said that we can kind of model these values, but I think there is a real clamor for more. If you could maybe list some actions and some things you'd like to see from us, I think the demand and the desire to do something is so great.
Okay, so the first item is if you can think of things that fit you, you are the people who invented limud. I am the last person in the world to turn to UK Jewry, who invented one of the most innovative inventions in Jewish history and tell you what to do. So if you can come up with something that fits your special community, then that's the first order of the day. I really am humbled when I talk to UK Jewry because every time I go to Limud, I am choked up by how innovative and fantastic and pluralistic this wonderful innovation is. So number one, think of something. But here are the things that we've been asking and has been very helpful. One thing is to sign the petition of the women of to liberate the wall, which is on the IRAC website. You look up at IRAC, I-R-A-C website, you will find a petition. I think we have 22,000 people signed in the last few days, but let's have 100,000, 250,000. Let's put something on Netanyahu's table that really will have him take a second look. The second thing is visit the Women of the Wall website. We have a lot of activities and offers. Today there is a flash mob in the United States of women doing Shema Israel as a flash mob. If that fits you, that'd be great. Buy a Women of the Wall talit. Wear your support for Women of the Wall. God knows I paid my lawyer with one of your talitot, with many of your talitot. But we pay the legal fund through talitot. I get a big kick out of the fact that one subversive act supports another subversive act. You buy a talit and come with it to your synagogue. Some people may frown on that. That's great. And you will, and half of the proceeds go for us to pay for the lawyer. If you feel up to it, have a solidarity prayer outside the Israeli embassy at your town. Stand outside Danny Taub's embassy, bring your talitot, bring your Sefer Torah, do a prayer of Rosh Chodesh, of the new month. It's going to happen on the 15th of November, this year. Stand on the sidewalk and use some of your delicious nuisance value to have the ambassador moved, and that he will write to his bosses in Jerusalem. This is stirring up things in the Jewish world. This is causing a lot of rift in the Jewish world. Let's find a solution for that. Don't allow any Israeli politician to talk to you without asking him, what about the Women of the Wall? Write your sentiments in the Jewish press and to the Israeli press. If you have relatives in Israel, call them and ask them to vote in a direction that will help the women of the wall. How would they know? They should ask their own politicians. Where do you stand on the women of the wall? If I come to the 19th Knesset, the new Knesset, with an initiative of a law, hopefully with the new member of Knesset, Gilad Karif, with a new law that says that women are no longer criminalized for doing the same religious acts that men do, would that politician vote for this? It's important. You have influence on the voters in Israel. And, of course, support the women of the wall financially. I think if they do charge me, I want to come with the best legal team I could possibly find, the best criminal lawyers, the best constitutional lawyers, and that costs money, and I think it's a good investment because I think we're going to win.
Anat, firstly, I just want to tell you that there are 110 people watching right now.
Yes!
Which is really cool, and this will be up on YouTube later for people to download. In a minute, I'm going to ask you to kind of make some closing remarks, but firstly, just for people in the UK, on the 14th of November, which is Erev Rosh Chodesh, we are having a solidarity/protest minyan, and details will be on the internet. We're going to, as Daniel, who's the chair, one of the chairs of Pro-Zion, will update, we're going to put a grab bag on the internet of action resources to enable people to not just learn from this experience, but to capitalize on it. If you could, in maybe kind of 5 minutes or so, just kind of sum up with some closing remarks, and then I'm going to hand over to Daniel Needlestone, who's one of the chairs of Pro-Zion, to kind of say goodbye to everyone and finish the evening's chat.
I have just two comments. One, Israel is way too important to be left to the Israelis. Sometimes we turn to you and we say, help us remember our own dream. Israel has a dream. It's in the Declaration of Independence, and it talks about a country that gives full equality to all its citizens without any difference of gender, creed, or religion. This is a classic case of us offending our own declaration. Remind us of our own dream. You have power. You have tremendous nuisance value. Use it. You in the UK have Limud. It would be wonderful if Limud this year, which is happening in 2 months, will make an effort of some kind on behalf of women of the wall. I know Limud is very careful to make sure that no one feels alienated. I'm reminding you that most of the women of the wall were Orthodox in its founding, and still today we have a strong faction of women of the wall who are Orthodox. The fact that someone is an Orthodox person does not mean that they're naturally against women of the wall. So if you could do something in behalf of women of the wall on this Limud, it will be very highly appreciated. And lastly, I think it's a historic thing that you have a webcast, and the fact that you have 110 is wonderful. A great Sanhedrin had 120, so you're just 10 under a great Sanhedrin. I hope we have 1,200,000 in our next webcast. Thank you so much for using technology so well, and you, Deborah, you're just beautiful to look at, wonderful to listen to. Just באמת, השמיעיני את קולך, כי קולך ערב ומראך נווה. Let me hear your voice, because your voice is wonderful and your countenance is beauty. באמת, thank you very, very much, and good night.
Hi there. I'm just going to sum up now. Anat, I'm Daniel, and Charlie has had some computer problems, so I'm taking over for a quick conclusion and say bye-bye to everyone. We will be having more webcasts with different people, and if you'd like to keep updated with them, please do sign up to the Pro-Zion Facebook page and visit our website prozion.org.uk and sign up for our newsletter. No obligation, no commitment. You can unsubscribe whenever you want, but you won't want to once you start getting it, because we'll fill your inbox up with Anat's wisdom every week. We are broadcasting to you from 3 countries at the moment. I'm in Oslo, Anat is in Germany, and Deborah and Charlie are in the UK, and I know there are people watching from all over the world. I hope wherever you're watching from, you've learned something tonight, and you've also taken something away with you and been inspired to do something. And I know whenever I hear Anat, that's one of the things that really makes something that really makes an effect on me. I always feel like I have to go and do something, and it was it was because of my previous meetings with Anat that we wanted to get something organised today to allow a wider audience to hear Anat's experiences, which we'd rather not hear about, but it's important when they happen that we do. So thanks again to everyone who's participated, everyone on Twitter, Facebook, and everywhere else who's sent questions in. And Anat, you've summed up so beautifully already, but in case you do want a last word, because there is no one better, you are welcome to say anything else now before I close our broadcast for today.
Laila Tov, thank you.
Thank you very much. This will be going on YouTube as soon as it's ready. Good night.
Right.